Hi all, welcome. So today we are going to see is about security and privacy in cloud, and I'm Lavanya, Assistant Professor of CS Department. So in this unit 2, we are going to discuss about network storage, secure isolation strategies. So let's dive into the topic. So what is meant by network and storage? So it refers to the combined protection of both the network infrastructure that transmits data and the storage devices where the data is kept, ensuring such that the sensitive information remains secure from unauthorized access, modification, or disruption, often achieved through measures like access control, encryption, and firewall across both network and storage system. So what is meant by that is that if you're referring to a storage system, it can be of a data center or it can be a storage purposes which is used in the industry or throughout the world. So that if suppose if I want to store some sensitive information regarding the patient's information or some employees information in a particular database, I just want to use or secure that particular database means of some authorized person only can able to access, such that not the third party can able to access that particular storage or the devices through some firewall or through encryption method. So all those things comes under this network and storage. So before that, what are the terms we have to refer to in terms of network and storage security? Is that why is network and storage security important? Is that the first one is that data protection. So both networks and storage devices hold sensitive information, making them prime targets for cyber attacks. So in case of if you're even though you're sensing, I mean you're protecting your data by means of some any software or some like sensitive, like I have given some such algorithms, but even though if they're attacked by means of cyber attack in the sense, you have to make such that even a third party can't able to access. For that purpose, you can use some virtual private net in order to secure remote access. So by means of protecting the network from malicious attack by implementing firewall to control the incoming and outgoing signals or traffic, you can use some intrusion detection system, that is IDS, to monitor for suspicious activity. And apart from that, you can go for some storage security. So storage security is what is that? It focuses on protecting the data stored on various devices like a hard drive, or it can be of a network attached storage, that is NAS, and cloud storage. And by implementing encryption for the data at rest, or you can able to access control to limit who can access specific data, and data backup strategies to reduce such data loss. And second one is that what is meant by business continuity. So what is meant by business continuity is that here a breach in network or a storage security can disrupt the operations and lead to significant financial losses. So what is meant by that is that something like in network or storage security, some breach or some hackers, they may be like doing some operations or some algorithms, and they'll be just going into the firewall and they'll be just modifying all those data, which leads to a significant financial loss, right? So in order to overcome such things, we need this network and storage security. So these are the two important or key values which is needed. So some common security measures for network and storage is that access control, encryption, data loss prevention, intrusion detection or prevention system, network segmentation, regular backups, and regularly backing. Okay. So first one, what is meant by access control? So access control is what is defined as that. So here it will be implementing some user authentication, some authorization mechanisms to restrict who can able to access the data on the network and storage devices. So what about encryption? That it will be just both in transit across the network and at rest on storage devices to protect against some unauthorized access, even though if you are intercepted. Third one, that is data loss prevention. So here, the system is designed to detect and prevent sensitive data from being accidentally or maliciously transmitted or deleted. So this is data loss prevention. And next one, intrusion detection or prevention system. So here, IDS or IPS, so they'll be just monitoring the network's traffic for suspicious activity or some unwanted logins or coming or activity blocking some potential attacks. So based on that, these some set of security measures will be implemented. And next one is that network segmentation. So the name itself, you can able to see network segmentation. Segment is like cards, right? So dividing the whole network into some small or some segments to limit the spread of the attacks. If you're, there may be such big companies, what they'll be doing is that they'll be having some sort of servers in different countries or different states, so that even though if one server has been attacked, even suppose in 99%, it will not be hacked. In case of it just has been hacked, in the sense like remaining servers, by means of that they'll be having some backup copy. So by means of that they'll be just securing the data. So that is what they're going to mention about this network segmentation. Next one, a regular backup. So regularly, if you're backing up the data to ensure such critical information that can be recovered in case of a breach or a system failure. So I'll be just saying the term breach. So what does it mean by breach? Is nothing but system failure. Okay. So by means of regular backing or regular backups, you can able to go for such security measures. So this is all about security measures which is used for network and storage. So apart from that, there are other things which is commonly used in for network and storage. So what is that is here we'll be using some sort of like IPS, VPN, DLP, or some you use some, what is that, behavior analytics or data loss prevention, and then physical security. So important consideration can go for some multi-factor authentication or security awareness training or regular security audits. By means of that also you can able to secure the data. Okay. And apart from that, there are so many network storage like security courses like access management or measures to be followed in cybersecurity. What they be doing in cybersecurity like access management, security monitoring, anti-malware software, application security, email security, or sign security information and event management. By means of that also they'll be just securing your control so that to protect some confidentiality or integrity or availability. Next one is that secure isolation strategies in cloud. So what kind of secure isolation strategies in cloud is that? So here in cloud environment, they'll be ensuring that different workloads, tenants, and data remain separate, reducing the risks such as that unauthorized access or data leakage or security breaches, which is for. So you might have here. So these kind of questions will be asked regularly. So secure isolation strategies in cloud, I mean in cloud computing is that. So here there are so many techniques involved which will be seen in the upcoming slides. And here, like by means of isolation, what is the meaning of data isolation? Yes, like data isolation is nothing but it's a kind of some physical network, right? So here in physical network, we will be having some operational separation of data to keep it safe from any some external cyber attacks or internal threats. And here the solution in a modern data isolation strategy with virtual area technology is that it protects the backup with temporary network connection and very strong access methods. And why the data, I mean secure data isolation is important is that cyber criminals, they be just storing the data for fraud, identity theft, or extortion. So these challenges create some mandate for some data centric methods. And in order to overcome that, we can go for these kind of secure isolation strategies. And what are some examples of data isolation is that, for example, if you're just isolating the data by putting some units of measures, say for example kilometers or meters between the original environment and the location where the copy of the data are stored. So here it will be impossible to access this kind of offsite data through the network because no connection exists. So such that the backup tapes or an example of physical data isolation. So here they'll be using some persistent connection or some string access control for both the access as well as the backup settings. Okay. So let us see what are the secure isolation strategies. We generally know, I think we have seen in the previous PPT or the previous video. So here the user access control, the authentication and identity separation use a Microsoft Intra ID and role-based access control. So under this, there are three types. First one, compute isolation. Second one, networking isolation. And third one is that storage isolation. So the first one, compute isolation. So here what we'll be doing is that we'll be using some logical isolation. So logical isolation, like we have some hypervisor, a drawbridge or user context. And in case of physical isolation, we used to have some Azure dedicated host and isolated VMs. And similar to that, in networking isolation also, we used to have some separation of tenant, network traffic and data encryption, network security group, service tag, as well as Azure private link. Okay, and in last storage isolation, we'll use some data encryption address like storage service, Azure disk encryption, and some customer managed keys. By means of these kind of isolation, we can able to secure the data in the network. So let us see one by one. So the first one is that network isolation strategies. So in this network isolation strategies, we use some key techniques. So these kind of key techniques like virtual private cloud, or we used to call as a virtual network. Second one, network segmentation and micro segmentation. Third one, firewalls and network security groups, that is NSG. And last one, zero trust network architecture, that is ZTNA. So what is meant by virtual private cloud is that we can create the isolated cloud environments, like it can be of AWS or Azure VNet or Google Cloud VPC. We can control the subnets, root tables, and security groups. And here also we'll be using some kind of network in order to control the root table as well as security group. Second one, network segmentation and micro segmentation. So here we use some VLAN, this is virtual local area network subnets, and software defined network, that is SDN, to isolate the workloads. And we used to have some micro segmentation. So microsegmentation, what is that? It restricts the lateral movement between the applications. So we can able to switch between some different applications. And third one, a firewall and network security groups, that is NSG we used to say. So here, the cloud native firewalls like AWS security group or Azure NSG, we can able to define inbound as well as the outbound traffic rules to restrict some unauthorized access. And next one is that zero trust network architecture we used to call as ZTNA. Never trust, always verify approach. So like simple term, they used to call as a never trust, always verify approach. And they use some continuous authentication and least privilege access. And apart from these kind of, these are some important network isolation strategies which is followed in an industry. And apart from that, there are some excess, isolation strategies which is followed in network. That is some private links and peering. Say like AWS private link or Azure private link or Google private service connect for secure private access, and then VPS peering for private network connectivity, some without the public internet exposure. And the next one is that secure VPN and dedicated connections. So site to site virtual private network for secure on-prem to cloud connections, and direct connect, that is AWS, or in Azure we used to say as a express route. And then for Google, we used to call as a like cloud interconnect. For some high speed links or networks, you can go for such VPN. So these are some kind of network isolation strategies which is followed in the uh, cloud. Okay. So let us see the next one. So next one is that storage isolation strategies. So storage isolation strategies here also used to follow some set of techniques or strategies. The first one is that encryption at rest and in transit. Second one, logical and physical storage isolation. Third one, role-based access control and least privilege. Next one, object look and immutable storage. Next one, multi-tenancy isolation in cloud storage. Okay. So first one, encryption at rest and in transit is that it used some AES-256 encryption for stored data. So which we have seen or we have discussed in the first unit. So that we have seen in basics of cryptography, right? So AES, some symmetric algorithms, asymmetric algorithms, okay. For encrypting the data, we use some SSL protocol and TLS protocol, that is transport layer security, secure socket layer. Okay, so these kind of things will be using it encryption at rest and in transit. And second one, logical and physical storage isolation. So here we use some separate storage accounts or buckets for different tenants, and we can configure the access control list, that's ACL, and the identity access management policies to restrict the access. Third one, role-based access control and a least privilege. So we can define the roles for the storage access like read or write or delete permission. So as we will be using in a file access, right? For file accessing, will be used have some what is that? Like permissions will use, whether in read mode or write mode or append mode. Okay. Similar to that, we can able to give the roles for the storage access as well. Okay. And by means of IAM permissions, we can restrict some unauthorized data access. Third one, fourth one, object lock and immutable storage. So we can able to prevent some ransomware attacks by making the storage immutable. So like AWS S3 object lock or Azure immutable blob, we can't able to change such things. Okay, so that is what means the lock. And next one, WORM, WORM, that we used to call as a, I hope you might have heard, I think, I don't know how many of them have heard this word WORM, WORM. It's nothing but write once and read many. Okay, that is called as a warm storage, we used to say. Okay, here for regulatory compliance, you can go for such warm thing. Okay, so this is one kind of storage purpose. So that is warm. And next one is that multi-tenancy isolation in cloud storage. So here we use some separate data encryption keys for each tenant or for each node storage. And we use some containerized storage solutions for better isolation. And apart from that, so these are the common strategies which is used in storage. Apart from that, there is one more thing that is called as backup and disaster recovery strategy. So that is used for cross-region replication for high availability, and we can be able to use some air gap bags to prevent some cyber threats. Okay, so these all comes under the storage isolation strategies. So the next, that is the last one we are going to see is about compute isolation strategies. So under this compute isolation strategies, there are now around 6 type strategy. The first one, virtualization based isolation. Second one, bare metal and dedicated host. Third one, hardware based isolation. Fourth one, Kubernetes and container security. Fifth one, network and compute isolation. And last one, role-based access control and least privilege. So this has been, we have already discussed in storage isolation, right? That is the last one. So that strategy is also followed in like compute isolation. Okay. So what has been the compute isolation is nothing but here the web cloud running on a shared cloud infrastructure, you know, It remains secure, it's separated, so such that it prevents some unauthorized access or the some resource containers, you know, or the side channel attacks by means of able to improve the security as well as the performance. The first one, virtualization based isolation, is that here there are two types like hypervisor based isolation and container isolation. So in hypervisor based isolation, the uses some type 1 hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor. I think you might have learned in OS. So there we used to say the concept of type 1 hypervisor. So here the VMware ESXi, Microsoft Hyper-V, KVM, we'll be using to create some virtual machine. And each virtual machine, that is VM, runs independently with its own OS and resources, and which prevents one tenant from affecting the another. And next one, container isolation. So here the containers like Docker or Kubernetes shares the same OS kernel but have some separate user spaces, which is lightweight compared to the VM, but requires strong security control to prevent some container escape attacks. And second one is that bare metal and dedicated hosts. So here the bare metal servers sorry, here the bare metal servers no virtualization, which runs directly on a physical hardware, which is best for performance sensitive or compliance heavily workloads, example say for healthcare or finance or for stock. Such things will be using these kind of bare metal host or server. Next one, dedicated host, is that cloud providers AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, which offers some dedicated host where only a single tenant runs workloads, which helps with the licensing requirements or some regularity compliances. Third one is that hardware-based isolation. So here also we have used two trusted execution environments, that is TEE, and second one, confidential computing. So what is meant by trusted execution environment is that TEE, which we can able to secure the code and data from unauthorized access. Even from the OS, we can able to protect the data. Say for example, like Intel SGX or AMD SED or AWS Nitro Enclave. These are some kind of trusted execution environments. Next one, confidential computing. So here, encrypts the data during processing, preventing exposure even if the system is compromised. We use some AI ML workload, financial transaction, and sensitive computations. And next one, Kubernetes and container security. So here, we use some pod level isolation and namespace based segmentation and runtime security. So pod level isolation is that we use some network policies to restrict the container communication by means of implementing a pod security policies to limit the privileges. And next one, by means of namespace based segmentation, we can able to separate the workloads into different Kubernetes namespaces, and can able to apply the role based access control to restrict the resource access. A third one is that we can go for some runtime security by using the tools like Aqua Security or Prisma Cloud to detect some container threats. Next one, network and compute isolation. So here we use some virtual private cloud and subnet isolation. We can able to assign some compute instances to private subnets with restricted access, use firewalls and security groups to define strict some inbound and outbound rules. And private endpoints and peering is that private link services like AWS private link or Azure private link to keep compute resources are private. And here the VPC, that is virtual private cloud, what will be doing is that for securing the internet communication without exposing resources to the internet. And next one is that role based access control and least privilege. This has been already seen. So where we'll be using some IAM. Okay, so use some identity and access management rules to control the compute access, and we can able to implement the least privilege access to prevent the privilege escalation. And next one, multi-factor authentication and just-in-time access. So we have seen single factor authentication, two-factor authentication. So here they'll be using some multi-factor authentication. So here It requires MFA, that is multi-factor authentication, for secure socket hash and API access. We can use some access credentials. And apart from these kind of isolation strategies, there are another thing like monitoring and threat detection. So here, monitoring and threat detection, the intrusion detection and response, and behavior anomaly detection is there. So intrusion detection and response is that we can able to deploy some SIEM solutions. We can use some endpoint detection tools, and in behavior anomaly detection, we use some AI based monitoring to detect some unusual compute activity. So by means of that, we can able to compute the isolation strategy. So these are all sorry. So these are all comes under the compute isolation strategies. Okay. I hope you might have understand these kind of topic. Okay. So these are commonly used in virtualization and virtual machine. Okay. To isolate or run some individual processes and then algorithm. Okay. So thank you all. I hope this video will be useful for you. Okay, bye. See you in next video.